Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ifeoluwa. In this video, I'm going to show you how to draft and cut this beautiful caged over bust corset. Now, this tutorial is very detailed. I explained everything that you need to know concerning this corset. It is also beginners friendly. I also shared some tips on the things you need to do and avoid when cutting out or when sewing this corset. Now, if this is something you're interested in learning how to cut and sew, stick around and watch this video to the end. And if you're also seeing me for the first time and you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do well to subscribe, give my video a thumbs up, and also feel free to leave your questions and your comments in the comment section. Thank you very much, guys. Now let's get started. Now these are the measurements I'm going to need for this top. So I have my bust measurements, the waist measurements, the hip, the bust points, the under bust, the front waistline measurements, and the back waistline measurements. Now you make sure that you measure this out separately. Then I have my across back measurements and my armhole circumference. Now I'm going to mark out my chest line measurements starting from the top of that paper. So for the chest line measurement, you can either use your bust measurements divided by 6 plus 1.5, or you just use your armhole circumference divided by 2. So I have 8.5 for mine. I'm going to mark that point. Then I'm going to mark my bust point. Then I'll mark the under bust, the front waistline, which is different from the back. The front waistline, which is 16 inches. Then from that front waistline, I'm going to mark out my hip line measurement. So I'm using 8 inches. My hip line is 8 inches. Then I'm going to do the same thing at the other side, and I'll connect with a straight line. So I have this as my shoulder line. This is the chest line, the bust point, the under bust, the front waistline, and then my hip line or the M line. Now I'm going to measure out my across back measurement, which is the shoulder to shoulder. I have 16 inches for mine divided by 2, which is 8 inches. I'll mark it on my shoulder line and the chest line. Then I'm going to connect a straight line. In order to create my armhole curve, I'm going to come down by 1 inch from the shoulder line. Then I'll measure out what I have left and divide by 2. So I'm going to measure that out and divide by 2 and mark that point. Then from that point, I'm going to come in by 0.75. Now on the chest line, I'm going to take the bust measurements divided by 4. So I'm going to use my armhole curve to connect those 3 points in order to create my armhole. Now for my neckline, I'm going to use 3.5 inches for the neck width and 3 inches for the neck depth. Then I'm going to connect with my armhole curve and also connect the shoulder slants. On the chest line down to the hip line, I'm going to take the nipple to nipple measurement. So I have 8 inches for mine divided by 2, which is 4 inches. So I'm going to mark out that 4 inches from the chest line down to the M line. Now there's a formula you can use if you don't already know your nipple to nipple measurements. You use your bust measurements divided by 4 minus 1.5 inches, and then you divide it by 2. So that's where you're going to get your nipple to nipple measurements. Now I'm going to connect this together. Now from this line that I already have here, I'm going to come in by 0.5 inch here. So from this line here, I'll mark out 0.5 inch inside. Then outside, I'm going to mark out 1.5 inches. So I'm going to do the same thing on the waistline, come in by 0.5 and mark out 1.5 outside. Then on the under bust too, I'll do the same thing, come in by 0.5 and then I'll mark out 1.5 outside. Then I'm going to connect with a straight line from the under bust down to the hip line. So after connecting that, I'm going to use my armhole curve to connect from the under bust to the bust points. Now for the shoulder dart, I'm going to divide what I have on my shoulder slant by 2. So I have about 4.5 here divided by 2. I have 2.25. Then I'm going to connect from that point down to the bust points. Now from the shoulder line here, I'm going to measure out the neckline. So that is the pointy part of the top, that pointy part there of the neckline. I'm going to measure that out. I used 4.5 inches. So if you want yours to be higher, that is if you want the pointy part of the top to be higher, of the neckline to be higher, you can go like 3 inches or 3.5 inches. So I use 4.5 inches for mine, and if you want yours to be lower, you can also go ahead to go lower than 4.5. Now in order to prevent gaping on the neckline, you want to make sure that the neckline stays well on your body. I'm going to be taking that here. So from this line here, I'm going to measure out 0.5 on both sides. So altogether I have 1 inch for the dart. Then I'm going to connect that back into the bust points. So this is what I have now. We are still coming back to this to fix in the proper neckline for this top. So I'm going to mark out my chest line, front waistline, and hip line measurements. So here I already have my chest line marked out as 9.5. Then I'm going to take what I have here. I have about 0.5. So you make sure you measure out what you have there for the darts. I have about 0.5, and I'm going to fix it back there so as to replace it. Now on the front waistline measurement, I'm going to take my waist measurement divided by 4. I have 8 inches for mine. I'm going to mark that, and then whatever I have here too, I'm going to replace it on the waistline. Then on the hip line, I'm going to do the same thing. Take my hip measurement divided by 4, and then whatever I have here too, I'm going to replace it on my hip line. Now I'll go ahead to connect those points that I have just made together. Now for my measurements, I have 16 inches for my front waistline and 14 inches for my back waistline. So the difference between that is 2 inches. So I'll be using that 2 inches to take in my side dart. So from this bust point here, I'm going to mark out the 2 inches, and then I'll connect it into the bust point there. So taking this is going to give your top a better fitting, and then the sides of the front and the back will be aligned well together. So these are the parts that I'll be cutting away from the pattern paper. They are not needed. Now back to the neckline. In order to measure this out correctly, in order to draft this out correctly, I would have to close up that dart, and to do that, I'm going to slash open the bust point. So you just slash it open and stop a little bit before that point. So that way I'm going to be able to fold this one well, and then I'll be able to mark out my neckline accurately. So you can see that as I have folded this, even the straight line that we made there is no longer equal. So folding this is going to make your neckline equal, since we'll be cutting out the darts at the end of the day. So after folding, I'm going to use my masking tape just to hold together. Now as I have folded this, now I'll go ahead to mark out my neckline. So starting from this point here is going to be the pointy part of the neckline. That is the pointy tip of the neckline. I'm going to use my cuff to connect to my chest line. So if you want yours to be deeper, you can go deeper than the chest line. You can use the bust point, or you can go 1 inch deeper. So it just depends on your preference and how open or how exposed you want the cleavage to be. So the chest line is just fine for me. And then from this point too, I'm going to use my curve to connect straight to my chest line there. So that is the new point of my chest line. So starting from this point here, I'm going to connect to my chest line. So now this is just the neckline, and then this is the armhole. So I'm going to go ahead to open this up now. Now what I want to do now is to cut out what I have. So to cut out, I'll have to close up my side dart that I have there, and in order to close that up well, I'm going to slash open this place. I'll slash open from this shoulder slant down to the bust point and stop a little bit before the bust point, so that I can close up the side dart. So I hope you understand that. Now after closing up the side dart, you will see that your chest line, the chest line to the waistline, won't be equal anymore. So you have to draw out a new line to connect those points together. So I'll be using my masking tape to close up this side dart, and then I'll connect the points together. Now because I want my waist to be a little bit snatched, I'm going to be taking a little side dart there. So what I have here, I'm going to divide by 2, and then I'll mark that point there, so that it can guide me to draw a straight line from the armhole down to the hip line. So I'm going to be drawing a straight line from that point down to that point. If you don't want to get confused, you can also go ahead to mark out the midpoint on the armhole there, so it can guide you on the line that you should make. So I'm going to go ahead to draw out a straight line from the armhole down to the hip line. Now right there on the waistline that I want to snatch, I'm going to be taking 0.25 on both sides. So 0.25, and altogether I'm going to have ½ inch. So that means I've already snatched this by ½ inch. So 0.25 on both sides. I'm going to mark that, then I'm going to connect them to the chest line and then to the hip line. Now by the side here, I'm going to come up by 3½ inches. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because I want this corset top to be very comfortable, so that by the time you are sitting, it will be comfortable. So it's not meant to be too long. So I'm coming up by 3½ inches. Then I'm going to connect that with my curve. I'm going to connect it to the other side. So guys, this is all for the drafting of the front pattern of this corset top. Then I'm going to go ahead to cut out what I have. If you are still watching this, please do not forget to subscribe to my channel, and also give this video a thumbs up so it can be visible to many more people. Thank you very much, guys. Now after cutting out, I'm going to label what I have. So this is my center front, and then this is my side front 1, and this is the side front 2. So this is what I have for the front pattern. Now I'm going to move to the back pattern. For the back pattern, I'm going to measure out the chest line starting from the top of my paper, my chest line, which is 8.5 inches, the same thing with the front. Then I'm going to mark out my back waistline. So don't forget that the back waistline is different from the front waistline. Now from the back waistline there, I'm going to mark out my hip line measurement, which is 8 inches. And I'm going to do the same thing at the other side, and then I'll connect them together. Now I'm going to mark out my across back measurement, which is my shoulder to shoulder measurement divided by 2. I'm going to connect that together from the shoulder line down to the chest line. In order to create my armhole, I'm going to come down by 1 inch from the shoulder line, and whatever I have left, I'll divide by 2 and mark. Then I'll come in by 0.5 inch. Now on the chest line, I'm going to take my bust measurement divided by 4, and then I'll go ahead to connect those 3 points together in order to create my armhole. Now I'll also mark out my neckline, which we actually do not need. So I'm using the same 3.5 inches for the neck width and then 1 inch for the neck depth, and I'm also going to draw my shoulder slant. Now on the waistline there, I'm going to come in by 1 inch. So from this point here, I'm coming in by 1 inch. So that is because the back is not straight. So this part kind of represents the zip part, right? So the back is not straight, and then I'm going to try to imitate the shape of the back by coming in by that 1 inch. So I'll connect from that 1 inch point back to the chest line and also to the hip line. Now it means that this part is no longer needed. Now I'm going to be taking my dart line. So it's also the same thing I used at the front, which is the nipple to nipple measurement. That is 4 inches. I'll be taking it straight down from the chest line down to the hip line. So on the waistline here, I'm going to come in by 0.5 inch on both sides. Then before connecting them together, I'm going to come up by 2 inches from the hip line. Then I'll go ahead to connect my darts together. Now I already have my chest line measurement here, which is 9.5. Then I'm going to go ahead to mark out my waistline measurement. So starting from this point here, so you remember that this is our new point and this part is no longer needed. So I'll take my waist measurement divided by 4 plus that 1 inch for that. So I have 8 inches plus 1 inch for that, which is 9 inches. And I'm going to take my hip line measurement too, and I'll mark that out. Then I'll go ahead to connect them together. Now for the neckline of the back, you can either use your chest line measurement straight like that, or you can just use your curve. So I decided to go in with my curve a little bit from the armhole down to the chest line. So just a little bit like that. So this is going to be the neckline of the back. Now I also go ahead to snatch the waistline of the back the same way I did for the front. So I'm going to look for the midpoint here, and then I'll mark it. So I'll connect a straight line from my neckline then down to the hip line. Then I'll take in 0.25 on both sides. So altogether I have ½ inch. Then I'll connect them too. Now by the side here too, I'm also going to come up by 3.5 inches. So just the same thing I did for the front, so as to have the sides equal for the front and the back. Then I'll connect with a curve into my M line. Now just so I can have a little opening on the back of my corset, I'm going to remove about ½ inch. So this part here, you can remove as much as you want. That is for the opening of the back, if you want it to be open. But if you want it to be together, closed up together, you don't have to remove anything. But for me, I just want it to be a little bit open, so I removed ½ inch from the back. So this is how it is going to look like by the time I want to fix in my eyelets for the corset. So this is what I'm going to have. So guys, this is all for the back pattern. Then I'm going to go ahead to cut out what I have, and then I'll also cut off the darts. Also, do not forget to label your pattern. So this is B1, back 1, back 2, and then back 3. So this is very, very important so as not to mix up the pattern paper. I also went ahead to fix in arrows so that I will know the parts that I'll be joining together. So this is how the back pattern looks after cutting, and then I'm just trying to show you how the sides look like, the front and the back pattern. So you can see that they are well aligned. So that is because of the 2 inches that we took away from the front and the back waistline measurement. So you just make sure that you accurately measure out your waistline so as to get something accurate, and so that your top is going to be really fitted. So guys, this is what I have now. Then I'll go ahead to cut this out on my fabric and add all the necessary allowances needed. So this is what I have after cutting out on my fabric, and then in my next tutorial I'm going to show you how to join this and then how to cage your bust. So if you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead to subscribe and also hit that notification bell so that by the time the next tutorial comes out, next tutorial for the sewing, it is going to be very detailed. I'm going to show you everything, and then I'll also tell you the mistakes that you should avoid and give you tips on how to make this come out really nice for you. So subscribe, give my video a thumbs up, and also feel free to ask your questions in the comment section, and then I'm going to see you in my next tutorial. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.